More demos to try for the Steam Next Festival begins with Boost Vector EX, a high-speed action parkour platformer where you sprint through fully handcrafted maps at a blistering pace, aiming to perfect routes and break speed records across unique circuits that range from towering skyscrapers to surreal vertical environments. You control a Vector Master, each with unique boosts and movement style, training wall rides, charge jumps, strafe boosts and aerial maneuvers to maintain momentum as you tackle tight turns and varied terrain. Stardust Wish of a Witch is a single-player turn-based tactical RPG with awesome pixel art where you guide a party on an adventure centered around a wish-granting star and the fate of the cast of characters. Battle on grid-based battlefields where every encounter hinges on reading enemy movement, using counters and combos, and deploying card-driven abilities that expand tactical depth beyond standard moves. As you advance, you unlock new skills and abilities, which expands your strategic options while uncovering narrative threads about destiny and friendship, looking like it's for fans of the genre. This video is brought to you by Spinera, a strategic roguelite slots title where you lead a civilization from the dawn of time through advancing eras using a slot machine to gather resources and shape your empire's destiny. In each cycle, you spin reels that generate raw resources, which you then apply towards science, culture, military, and other needs, letting you steer your civilization towards prosperity instead of collapse. Leaders you choose provide unique starting abilities and traits that change how resources behave, with varied strengths and weaknesses suitable for different strategies. Build wonders that unlock passive bonuses, enhance resource outputs, and grant strategic wild effects that turn symbols into powerful tools for growth or defense, while relics and great figures bring one-off bonuses that can shift a run's direction at critical moments. So if interested, wishlist the game on Steam via the link in the description below. Lunar Abyss is a single-player, story-driven action-adventure game that marries fluid first-person platforming with intense bullet hell combat as you journey deep into a derelict megastructure on the mimic moon Luna. You play as a prisoner tasked with recovering forgotten technology and unraveling the Abyss's mysteries, sprinting, jumping, and dashing through the structure while facing corrupted souls and cosmic horrors. With precision weapon and reflex-based shooting, exploration and traversal are woven into combat loops where mastering movement and weapon control lets you navigate vertical spaces and dodge cascading projectiles in a manner that seems reminiscent of Returnal. Push deeper into hostile zones, learn enemy attack patterns, master various tools, and uncover the history of a lost colony's downfall that gives context to your struggle and the Abyss itself, where I just love the megastructure fake moon setting and is definitely one to try. From the developer of Decline Drops comes Dash and Drops, a platform fighter-inspired action roguelite where you blast through levels with fast, precise combat and unlock tools to take on powerful enemies known as the 7 Eternals. You build and customize your moveset in each run, finding an equipment diskettes which give you access to smash attacks, tilts, and aerials, letting you shape your own combat style in every run. Core stats like speed, jump, attack, and defense can be increased through upgrades and passive items you find, creating a unique build every time you play with a nice mix of platforming and combat. Rune Dice is a physicsy tactical deck-building RPG where you battle by launching your dice across the play area, creating magical chain reactions when matching values merge into stronger dice, which leads to a cascade, strengthening your attacks against enemies at the top of the screen. Choose from distinct hero classes, each with unique dice sets and abilities, then select your dice carefully to fuse power, trigger combos, and manipulate the play area against waves of magical enemies and bosses. Dice interact with relics and runes you collect, letting you experiment with powerful combinations that change how your attacks behave, looking like something different in the roguelite space. A game which at some point self-described as a Celesteoidvania is LUCID, which I took to mean Celeste plus Metroidvania, adding a dose of precision platforming to the interconnected, backtracking, combat-focused genre that we all know and love. Set in a crystal punk world torn apart by calamity, you control Owen, a young sentinel on a quest to fulfill a solemn promise, navigating a vast interconnected landscape while using powerful abilities known as crystal arts. As you explore this world, you gain movement enhancements that expand your traversal options and enhance combat, letting you perform acrobatic jumps, powerful slashes, and tactical attacks against a diverse cast of enemies and bosses. Along the way, you collect crystal shards and rare materials to upgrade your braces and crystal arts, taking the form of crystal blade, spear, and axe, which are not only combat options but also aid in the traversal and unlocking of new areas. Where they seem to have jazzed up the visuals tremendously since we last took a look, and the next festival participation leads me to believe that the release would be right around the corner. Modulus is a creative sandbox factory simulation where you build, automate, and optimize elegant production lines using modular building blocks to shape sprawling systems for a colony's needs. You start with basic resources and tools that let you cut, paint, stamp, and assemble 3D modules into factories that produce other modules, letting you design solutions both functional and visually striking. With no enemies, timers, or combat, the emphasis is entirely on experimentation, logic, and creating efficient assembly systems that feed ever larger neural monuments and satisfy growing demands from a deep space signal. It is a factory builder, so you're using conveyor belts, machines, and assembly points to solve logistical puzzles where more often than not, you might just end up tearing the whole thing apart once you learn the intricacies of the system, and looks like a fantastic entry in this genre. Divinum is a pixel art action side-scroller with Metroidvania elements where you take up the mantle of a celestial blessed warrior, defending your northern island home from invading threats. You navigate interconnected zones both on the surface and underground, from forgotten caves to sacred ruins, confronting waves of enemies with an intricate combat system that encourages chaining attacks, quick dodges, blocks, and parries to stay alive. As you explore, you unlock powers granted by ancestor spirits and find equipment that enhances abilities, with hidden paths and secret areas to discover as well. Super Meat Boy is back, even if it is not from the original Team Meat, but this time as a 3D platformer, retaining its tough-as-nails nature as you control Meat Boy, a small cube of meat, attempting to save your girlfriend from the villain while navigating brutal, unforgiving levels filled with buzzsaws, traps, collapsing terrain, and hazards that kill you in a single hit. Precise movement and split-second timing are at the core of the experience, with wall runs, mid-air dashes, and tight jumps, which you use to navigate through varied biomes ranging from lush forested areas to fiery forges and treacherous trash-filled levels, where I'm just curious about the transition to 3D, which makes this a must-play. Another pixel art title that has my attention is Romestead, an action-adventure survival town builder set after the fall of Rome, where you fight, gather, and build to restore civilization amid both hostile threats and mythical challenges. The world opens with Rome in ruins and roaming undead that hunt you at night, forcing you to gather resources, fortify your settlement, and light torches to protect your people before darkness falls. You establish a new village from scratch, building structures like a blacksmith, leather worker, and farmstead to keep citizens fed, equipped, and happy, with decorations and amenities boosting morale and support. Carry rocks and lumber manually or automate production lines as your settlement grows to unlock deeper crafting systems. Rituals and offerings to the Roman gods let you earn favor and access unique buffs and technologies that change how you play, also being able to explore the procedurally generated world to obtain new resources and uncover secrets, and also has co-op support for up to 8 players, looking like something special. Everything is Crab, the Animal Evolution Roguelite, is a top-down action roguelite based on the meme/evolutionary fact that the crab seems to be the ideal form for whatever reason, in which you play as a creature in a living ecosystem and shape its evolution by selecting from a vast array of biological traits as you hunt, flee, scavenge, and adapt to survive. Every run lets you mix and match over 100 evolution-based abilities that change how your character looks and performs, letting you experiment with different strategies and physical forms to tackle a world of danger and opportunity. Enemies and environmental challenges respond to your choices, and survival depends on how well you balance offensive power, defensive traits, and mobility as you carve out your niche in dynamic biomes with day-night cycles. The ecosystem brims with other life affected by the same evolution rules, so understanding how to cope with hunger, hostiles, and shifting conditions becomes crucial if you want to thrive, with endless possible combinations and a little bit of a Spore-like vibe. Parasite Mutant made waves when it was first announced, being framed as a spiritual successor to Parasite Eve, a cult classic title which the IP holder refuses to do anything with, so once again leave it to indie developers to give the people what they want. This is a sci-fi horror RPG where you play as Nova, a psionic agent sent to investigate a mysterious abandoned island city overrun with horrifying creatures and animated threats. The game uses an active time chain combat system, which is some sort of extension of the Active Time Battle or ATB system, blending elements of real-time and turn-based action where timing attacks and dodges across segmented chains affects how battles unfold while you manage your stamina and positioning. As you explore the surreal, abandoned environment, you solve puzzles and uncover the buried truth behind what happened to the city's inhabitants, definitely having some survival horror vibes as well as an interesting mix of art styles. I caught wind of CICADAMATA on social media, where this is a fast-paced first-person shooter in which you play as a cicada deployed into a mysterious realm known as Cascade under a high-risk core retrieval protocol, pushing reflexes, precision movement and combat into a stylized dystopian setting. You run, hop, skip and dash through more than a dozen free-form levels spread across several spheres, using a versatile movement toolkit as you tackle tight platforms and hostiles. Central to how you engage is a maneuver system built around rapid traversal and agile positioning, letting you chain jumps, wall movement and directional control to stay ahead of enemies, looking so stylish and trippy. Hark the Ghoul is a first-person Souls-like dungeon crawler that is the latest in the line of King's Field-like titles where you slay enemies and explore a meticulously handcrafted world brimming with secrets, gear, and curious encounters beneath a dark, starless cityscape. You dive into twisting, interconnected zones, crawling with hostile enemies, using swords, whips, pistols, cannons, and magic to fight through ever more challenging encounters. Alongside combat, exploration and discovery are key, with tight looping level design as you uncover forgotten lore and find unique gear with distinct utility, and is one of the top picks for first-person Souls-likes. Speaking of Souls-likes, Grime II is the follow-up to a surreal action-adventure Metroidvania but has completely changed the setup, since instead of a living black hole, you play as a formless art mimic capable of absorbing enemy shapes and summoning them as modes to aid in battle and exploration. You launch tendrils made of hands to grab, parry, and absorb enemies, then use those modes to fire projectiles, stun enemies, or even create summon allies where the parry will be critical as in the first game. What I like about this series is that its world design is unique, with the first game's world being made of rock and wood instead of the more classic gothic horror or high fantasy settings, so enemy designs know no bounds in this game, with some of the freakiest and most inventive enemy models that I have seen, where this game recently got a release date for 31st March, so this demo should be about as close as we are going to get to the final version. A lot of you have been banging on and on about the eternal life of Goldman, and I would concur, since this is a gorgeous hand-drawn 2D action platformer set in a dark archipelago inspired by legends, fairy tales, and myths, where you explore by jumping, climbing, and using abilities tied to your upgradable cane, on a mission to find and defeat a mythical deity that few have ever seen. Explore diverse biomes filled with secrets, eccentric characters, and environmental hazards that test both reflexes and your wits, with new cane parts granting fresh traversal and combat options, although there is no backtracking and this is not a Metroidvania. The visuals are created using classic frame-by-frame animation, and it really shows, being one of the most beautiful games ever, so let's hope the gameplay holds up. Vampire Crawlers, the turbo wildcard from Vampire Survivors, was not what I would expect from the developer of Vampire Survivors, but I guess with more money than God, you can take bold swings at things, and indie games are all the better for it. This is a turn-based deck-building dungeon crawler where you explore maps and battle enemies, looking like a classic turn-based, grid-based dungeon crawler visually, but with deck-building combat. use a hand of cards that combine into powerful effects, turning each encounter into a tactical puzzle of play order and combo placement, since you will be able to build cascading combo chains that amplify the impact of cards played and can create dramatic, screen-shattering results. Early impressions are in, and this looks to be every bit as compelling as Vampire Survivors, but I suppose for the deck builder fan, so be warned, this could easily suck up hours of your life in the not too distant future. We did get the news that Replaced, a cinematic 2.5D action platformer, will be getting a slight delay from March to April, but that has not dampened excitement for this since it looks so good. Set in an alternate retro-futuristic version of 1980s America, you control an AI unwillingly trapped inside a human body, having to explore a dystopian world scarred by catastrophe and corporate corruption. It's cinematic platformer action, so you're able to move between foreground and background layers, moving from left to right, but also jumping and platforming in a more realistic manner. Which then brings us to the combat. Use both melee and ranged attacks with timing and positioning, where parries, counters and chaining attacks are critical as you stylishly take down enemies, where I've been waiting a long time for this, so what's another month? One of the most anticipated indie games of the year is Alabaster Dawn, a 3/4 view 2.5D action-adventure RPG from the developer of Crosscode, where its initial demo launch was well received, and the demo has been updated, so why not give it another look. It's similar to Crosscode in that the focus is on combat, exploration and puzzles, but this time set in a mysterious ruined world where the gods have vanished and the shadow of Nyx has warped the land into a wasteland. You play as Juno, the outcast chosen, battling enemies with stylish combos using a wide arsenal that includes multiple melee and ranged weapons that can be enhanced with 4 elements, letting you switch loadouts on the fly for every combat scenario. There are also magic spells and divine arts, a civilization building element as you restore towns and link them together, as well as gorgeous pixel art, where I believe they are gearing up for an early access launch sometime in 2026, so this participation in the festival is good news. An awesome surprise which dropped out of nowhere is Darkhaven, coming to us from Blizzard veterans that worked on Diablo 1, 2, Lord of Destruction, 3, 4, Torchlight 1, Torchlight 2, Nox, Hellgate London, and even Marvel Heroes Online, so yes, the games of my youth that have stuck with me till today, which is why a dark fantasy isometric ARPG from this group is of note. One key differentiator is that the entire world is procedurally generated for every player, set in the aftermath of a civilization's collapse, as you face dangerous enemies, rebuild settlements, and repel otherworldly corruption. In this evolving open world, you explore diverse biomes which are connected by ecological rules that you can deform and manipulate, letting you dig into earth, tunnel through walls, drain lakes or raise fortifications, along with the ability to jump so that you're not stopped by a fallen log or a shallow stream. Combat does seem to be a little bit more like Path of Exile 2, so more modern instead of simply standing there and clicking, so I am very curious, with early demo reviews being very positive, and has quickly jumped up my personal watch list. Watch this video for more upcoming indie games.